Okay, welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Today I'm just going to talk about the toxic views on purity culture. I read an article by a lady named Ashley Hooker. Yes, her last name is Hooker. And I will put like the like her name and the name of the article down at the bottom. But she talks about true love waits, which I don't know if you're very familiar with true love waits. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But you know, it just happened in the 90s. Everybody was like signing that little card, and they were like, I promise to wait till I'm married. But honestly, purity culture has been created by man. I mean, like, I don't think it's not, purity culture should not be compared to your salvation. If it's being compared to your salvation, you've got like an idol and you need to fix that. I don't know how you'll fix it, but fix it. So anyway, sorry, I just looked at my glasses. I brought my glasses last week, so that's why it's like this. But anyway, just that going back to purity culture is that it's man-made. You know, like a lot of things that we do are man-made, and it becomes like a theology that we must have. You know, people say, well, if you wait, this is what happens. But God didn't really promise if you waited that your life would be happy, your marriage would be great. You know, it's something I mentioned in other previous videos, that I feel like when you do question purity culture, people are like, why are you questioning it? You know, what are you doing? You're messing with the status quo of it. And just because you question it does not mean you don't believe in purity, that you don't believe in waiting for marriage, because a lot of times people have that problem that if they do go outside of God's will, or they feel it's outside of God's will, that God is shaming them and God is not going to bless them anymore. That, you know, you just have this cloud of misery above your head. I can't think, there's like a character, I don't know, where he had just had it was always perpetually raining on him. And I think a lot of times in church we're taught that if we do that, that God's not going to bless you. But it's after you've repented and you ask God for help, and you turn away from your sin or whatever, you turn away from whatever that's keeping you into that same pattern. But just to clarify, purity culture is man-made. It is man-made. God did not want us to be, you know, be in bondage. So if you're bondage, you know, you're in bondage with that, but you need to figure out how I can help you. Because I think what happens is that people who question purity culture are progressive Christians. But that doesn't mean you're a progressive Christian. You're questioning the belief system. It's more patriarchal. You know, it's more about the women have to help the man not to sin, when it should be all gender, like male and female. God created us equal. So we have to be careful about making the woman the problem, you know, for why this man has had sex. I mean, that's like, I've listened to some true podcasts. I don't know how that kind of relates, but, you know, you're like, oh, well, you know, the reason she got this happened to her because she dressed wrong. She could have been, you know, like, there have been people who have been mothers minding their own business and they get raped, not because the way that they dress. So we have to be careful about the whole putting the sexual immorality or the sexual desires on women. Like, why is it it's not our responsibility to be the sexual gatekeeper. If a man cannot be disciplined to wait, and you can't be disciplined to wait, then y'all are both like the same. You are the same. But it's wrong to put that on such a responsibility, because it you know, when you're a teenager and you do like true love waits or victory by virtue or whatever, just waiting till marriage, then you feel that it's my responsibility to keep all men from sin. Like, something wrong. But like, guys don't have that I don't think purity culture is as toxic as it is for women. Because I don't think men, I mean, I don't know. It seems like in the church that the men don't have the same responsibility as women. Like, we're the sexual gatekeepers. Just like, hey, you know, if you could get it while you can, do it. You know, and the girl's like, I've got to wait. And I gotta read my Bible more. I've got to cook. So I can be a great wife. You know, a great mother. And if I wait, all those things should happen. So anyway, so basically, don't forget to like and share. Just want to remind you. But okay, so I'm going to go over that. So the only scriptures I can think of, I'm sorry I didn't read it, forgive me, is about purity. Is 1 Thessalonians 4, 3, and 8. But again, let me remind you, purity culture is man-made. So if you see somebody talking about, like, well, you know, you're progressive if you question it, just be like, I can question it and still be a Christian and haven't lost my mind. See, the thing is, like with purity, you know, they tell you in purity you'll never get it back. But if you ask for God to help you and ask you for tools to get you on the right track, He will forgive you. Because God is not holding your purity over your head and being like, I will not forgive you. You are such an idiot. Because He's not saying that. He's like, honey, just get it right. Get it right. Whatever you do, just get it right. You know, Christians should not be known just for their purity. They should be known for how they treat others. Christ-like, you know. But I think as a Christian, and then I think even as a Christian girl, Christian woman, you think, my responsibility is to know how Christian I am, is that I waited. So, but that, you know, your salvation is not built on that. You need to fix that. Yeah, so that's basically, your faith should not be known. You should only be known for how well you know God, not about your purity. Now, you know, if you're out doing stuff that you know that's not right with God, then fix it. But don't assume that is meaning that God, that salvation or purity trumps salvation. Salvation trumps purity. Because with God and you spend time with Him, you will want to be pure. Your desire is to have that clean heart and clean thoughts. I mean, as much as you can, because you are sinful and, you know, and human nature and everything. Okay, so another thing is that I remind you that, you know, your impurity, you can be pure again, but you have to realize that it's your faith in God that, you know, and you're trusting God and reading His Word that'll help cleanse you. But also number 2 is to realize, as women, we are not the sexual gatekeepers for men. Because I think that's what happens. I feel like women get into that habit of like, oh, I've got to help him. I can't make him sin. And I got to tell you something. So about 2 years ago, I had been talking to a guy. It's so hard not to name him because he lives in Tulsa. But anyway, he figured because I was like a little huggy and affectionate that, you know, I was going to steer him the wrong way sexually. And I'm like, this man was talking to me like, so what do we do? You know, if you like me and we have to share a bed. And I was like, I think we'll be okay. He's like, well, how do you know? And so, like, he, like, held it against me that I was kind of huggy. Like, I was affectionate. So, you know, but I think a lot of times, if women get, okay, here's the opposite. Women can become too much of a sexual gatekeeper, and men can be, who are raised in the purity culture, can be too religious, where everything is like, oh my gosh, you touched me in the wrong way, it's sinful. And you're like, wait, no, that doesn't mean I'm sinful, that means I'm attracted to you. So I think, like, the wires can be crossed, and, you know, you get to the point where you're on one end where you're like, I'm trying to keep it straight. you know, and then you could go to the opposite side where you're just as loose as a goose on Easter egg moment. I don't know, you just get loose. So I don't know, it's just like you have to be careful. But anyway, the guy was all like, oh my gosh, you're too touchy. And I was like, that's scary. Like, is he gonna be one of those people afraid of intimacy when we do get married? Ooh. So I don't know, you just have to be really careful. But it shouldn't be the woman's responsibility to keep that. It should be like a mutual understanding of like, hey, baby girl, we gotta slow it down, okay? Or something, but not make it the woman's responsibility. Because I always felt like all the time, like reading all the books like Elizabeth Elliot, Passion for Purity, Lady in Waiting, I Kissed Dating Goodbye, that affection was wrong, and that basically you had all these soul ties, because that's why I didn't date. So by the time I was like 38, you know, I'm like, yo, let's date, you know. And I did go out with one guy. He was all like, I can't believe you waited that long. And I'm like, he didn't think of it as an honor. I was like, okay, that should have been my sign by. But I don't know, I think he get hung up. So that's what I'm talking about, the women as sexual gatekeeper, because I thought I was a sexual gatekeeper. Like, I was always like, no, that's not, run away. And that's what I did for a long time. Still did. But it's just sort of like, but you could get into that trouble while men, Christian men, I don't know what the equal is. If you have any ideas of how you would handle, like, if we could revise the whole purity culture to make it to the point that it's not like man-made and icky and causes like confusion, you know, like there's just, okay, I'm off track, but I'm gonna have to go back. I'm sorry, I'm circling around. So there's a guy that's doing dominion dating, which is interesting because he's making women, guess what, sexual gatekeepers. Like, you gotta dress modestly, you gotta look like this, you gotta not want to be career minded, you have to want to do this, and you have to want to do it. So it's very male driven, which is not fun. I mean, it's like, shouldn't I be equal? Shouldn't I be your equal partner? Shouldn't you like me for me? Or, you know, like, because you're thinking that. So yeah, I think that's a problem with, you know, women being the sexual gatekeepers. That's not fair. God didn't say, oh, well, you got to be a sexual gatekeeper. So, women, as women, we're not supposed to help with men's purity. If they can't get it straight and you can't get it straight, then y'all are both off, you know. So, but it also, like, gives us, you know, fears, you know, with, like, if I mess up, I'm gone. And also, it just, purity culture keeps us in bondage. You know, God wants freedom and life and love, but also making sure that you're on the right path. That you ask God, hey, God, how can you help me with this? What do I need help with? You know, and not be, like, under such a bondage. I feel like, and I don't know, I've been stuck on this because I feel like it is a bondage. It's almost like you can go to extreme levels. You could be like such against sex, and then you can go like extreme to the point where you're like too much for it. So I haven't figured out the perfect balance. I don't know if I ever will, but I feel like I need to just talk about this because it is toxic. It, you know, so many people, you know, are upset by it, but I think it's trying to figure out how to navigate through it so that you're still honoring God. So, and then, like, the fourth thing is that we're taught that, you know, sex is bad, will hurt us, sex will, you know, but if it's within marriage, I think it's great, you know, but if you haven't gotten married, then, you know, ask God to help you with that and not, you know, put bondage on yourself. And I think that's mostly what it is like not having bondage. I mean, a lot of times our sin can when we do things, it can bind us. It can make us unhappy. It can make us sad. But if we understand the biblical rules of marriage and sex, and if somebody doesn't wait, that we just don't, not kind of brand them as bad people, but try to, honor them and try to figure out ways to help them to grow. So basically, here's the 4 things, recap just that it's man-made. 2, it keeps women as sexual gatekeepers. It can put a lot of fear in us, because purity is, I think, in a way, is fear-based. And number 4, we need to understand, the biblical ethics of marriage and the biblical reasons for sex and everything. But anyway, like I said, just don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And if you can think of any other ideas, I'd be interested in what you think about, how did you handle, if you had to wait for marriage and not, was it a choice or that you decided not to wait, and what did you do differently, and what would you tell your younger self, So anyway, thank you for listening and listening to me ramble and be random at times. Hopefully it made a whole lot of sense, but thank you and have a great day.